Welcome, dear listeners, to episode 116 of The Reformed Gamers, the show all about theology, video games, and celebrity worship pastor lookalikes. I'm your apparently Stephen Curtis Chapman lookalike host, Logan.
I am his co-host, Adam.
And I am his PlayStation-loving guest host, Micah.
Yeah, dear listeners. So let me just break things down for you a little bit right at the start of the show here. A little bit of housekeeping. We are starting a new series called The State of. Each episode is going to take a look at one specific console. So this episode is going to be PlayStation, if you couldn't tell by the title. And we're actually going to bring on some guest hosts, looking at bringing on some dear patrons onto these episodes. And joining us for this episode is one of our dear patrons here, Micah. Dude, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me on, guys. I really appreciate it. This is exciting.
Yeah. Now. Little bit of background for the dear listeners, because Micah, I think me and you have a little bit of a healthy rivalry going on right now when it comes to platinum trophies. Would you say?
Yes, definitely. You are lagging behind.
Just a little bit. I'm going for that God of War one now. I'm gonna catch up eventually. Maybe by the time I become 80 years old and. I don't know, but
so you're saying Micah's 80 or what?
No, I'm saying by the time that I hit 80, I'll probably catch up to him, because by the time I hit 80, I mean, he's gonna have like 400 platinum trophies by the time I get up there.
I don't know. I mean, every time I look at the Facebook group, you're got like another trophy like every other week, so like another platinum trophy. So
all I know is Micah. We got to figure out the ways of Micah, because he's got 3 kids. And he puts games down. I mean, he is just working through them constantly. And so I'm like, teach me, Jedi Master.
It's all about that post bedtime time. And I'm super lucky because I have 3 great kids that sleep and aren't super fussy and all that kind of stuff. So
and a wife that doesn't mind that you game.
Well, yeah. Well, she's super awesome. Obviously, my wife Emily. Yeah, but we obviously have time we spend together and stuff, and we'll. She's really good about giving me gaming time. And then obviously we have time that we spend together and stuff. So yeah.
That's cool, man. So, dude, let me ask you real quick. Let's let the dear listeners get to know you just a little bit. What is, and I didn't put this question in the show notes, I was just kind of ad-libbing at this point. What is your favorite, most prized platinum trophy? I gotta know, man.
Oh, geez, putting me on the spot.
Yeah.
I remember back on the PlayStation 3 days, I had never played a Bethesda game before Fallout 3. And so I got Fallout 3 and loved it, and wound up getting that platinum trophy. So I was real proud about that.
That's impressive.
And let's see, on the PS4, I don't know. Getting The Last of Us remastered was really, really hard. So that one, and that's just an awesome game. I don't have all the DLC trophies and stuff on that, but I do have a platinum on that.
Golly, dude, I remember looking at the trophy list after that game shortly came out, because I was thinking about getting the platinum as well. That's impressive, dude. That's no slouch. It's a hefty platinum.
Yeah, the Last of Us, you played on survival mode. They have a grounded mode too that's separate, kind of a busted out trophy list that you don't have to get for the platinum. But that survival mode is no joke. It took a while.
Golly, dude.
Speaking of platinums, guys, I'm on the verge. I think there's a platinum in my future coming up here. I haven't even mentioned this. I'm bringing this out of left field. So I've been playing this game. I haven't talked about it much on here for whatever reason, but Hidden Agenda. It's like a party game. PlayLink. I don't know if you guys have played any of those, but I've played through it like 5 or 6 times, and I've just been popping trophies because we haven't been very good at it, the guys I play with, and we finally got like the good ending last night. So I was like looking through the trophies. I'm like, if I play this 2 or 3 more times and just sabotage things, I think I could pop a platinum on this game.
Do it, man.
But I gotta look up the trophy list so I know what decisions to throw.
Nice, dude.
I'm joining you guys. Platinum.
I'm digging all this platinum talk. Can we just talk about platinum trophies the rest of the episode? I mean, let's just, we're still talking. I'm just kidding.
I would love it.
I'm just kidding. All right, Micah, let's do this one last question before we get into the show here, man. 2018, we've seen a lot of great games this year, man, but what is your favorite game that's come out this year so far?
Well, the funny thing is I got a Switch for my birthday
Nice.
back in March. So I've been playing a lot of old games that haven't really come out. So I've been playing a lot of Breath of the Wild and Super
Ooh.
Mario Odyssey and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
as far as games that have come out in 2018, honestly, this is going to sound a little bit like a broken record, but Celeste
Yes.
is it, I think.
That's what I'm talking about.
I was listening to some of that soundtrack today, and it's just so good.
Yeah, man.
The controls are perfect. The level of challenge, everything about it. I know you've already sung its praises on the show, but
Oh yeah.
Celeste was really awesome.
Awesome. Loving it. All right, Michael. Well, thanks again for joining us on the show. I mean, I'm not going to kick you off here, but I just want to, throw that out there one more time.
See ya.
It's like, well, you were on for 5 minutes, pushing you out. No, I'm kidding. All right, dear listeners, let's go ahead and get into the show here without further ado. Welcome to the Reformed Gamers. We like to start off the show like we always do with a little bit of what we've been playing and what we've been reading. And this section of what you've been playing has been brought to you by David Skinner, one of our dear VIPs over on patreon.com/thereformedgamers. As always, if you like what we do here on the show, you can go over to patreon.com/thereformedgamers to lend your support for the show. Get some sweet, sweet swag, entry into our monthly game giveaway, and all kinds of goodies. Head on over there. Links are in the show notes. But Micah, since you are the dear guest, supreme burrito thing of this episode, man, what have you been playing? Let us know.
Well, like I said, I've been playing a lot of Switch, but since this is going to be a little bit more of a Sony-focused episode, about a week ago or so, they kind of didn't shadow drop it, but it just was announced really quick that a demo for the upcoming game Detroit Become Human, that's a game developed by Quantic Dream, secondhand sort of studio that develops games for PlayStation, but been playing this demo that dropped on Tuesday, and it's sort of like Heavy Rain, their past game. If you played that, I never played Beyond Two Souls, but from what I played of this, it has a lot of Heavy Rain inspired themes and sort of just mechanics. I know back in Heavy Rain, you played as a policeman and like a private investigator, I think. So this particular demo, which sets up as okay, you're an android going into this hostage situation. There's a little girl being held hostage by another android that's sort of gone rogue and whatnot. But and so you're going through this scene. You're going through this house first and foremost, and kind of looking for clues and picking up different things that'll give you information about when you go out there to confront the hostage situation. So all those sort of mechanics really reminded me of Heavy Rain, which I love that game, and but it looks gorgeous. I'm playing on a PS4 Pro, and that's one of the first things that you notice. Just the character models, the skin, everything it's really, really good looking. Yeah. It's all about choice in these Quantic Dream games. It's all about dialogue choices and making sure you see this bit of information or this clue so that you can even have a dialogue choice to say it in any given case. And so I think this demo had like 6 or 7 different outcomes. I played it twice and got 2 very different outcomes for sure. I don't think it's a spoiler to say because it's in the demo. I mean, you play as this character, and at the end of one scenario, my character died. Like that's it. Wow. I don't know or this isn't a game, but I suppose if you died in that part, you might not be playing as that character anymore. But yeah. What did you think about it, Logan? I know you played it some.
Yeah. So I too enjoyed Heavy Rain, and booting this up, I was like, wow, this is kind of amazing. I mean, it's the same thing you brought up. The game looks fantastic, and I was also playing on a PS4 Pro. Game looks great. Controls great. I think it controls better than Heavy Rain, because I know in Heavy Rain you had to hold down, I think, R2 and then move the stick to walk, whereas you don't have to do that in this one.
Yeah.
Thank goodness. But yeah, so you said in your outcome, or one of them at least, your character dies. Was that your first outcome that you got when you first played the demo, or what?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I definitely didn't pick up all the clues the first time through. I just so what happens is it gives you have a percentage of like your chance of success. It's sort of the whole time that's going up or down depending. If you waste time, it's going to continually sort of drop down.
Yeah.
And if you find a clue that might help you, it'll boost back up by 10% or something like that. So I was really in a hurry to kind of get out there. I was like, oh, I'm just losing time, so I didn't see all the clues, and I conversely didn't have some, I don't know, maybe some good dialogue options to open. But either way, I said the wrong thing, and well, I don't want to say what happened, but yeah, it didn't end well for me.
It did not end well. Yeah, when I got to the end of mine, because I was like, it's cool how they build that tension in there of, you know, you come on the scene and it's like, you know, you're kind of on a race against time, whereas if you don't get out there, the android's going to, you know, kill the little girl. But at the same time, you want to make sure you have all the necessary information to get out there so you can get a good outcome. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna do two things. I'm gonna try and get as much info as I can during this playthrough on the demo, and also kind of toy with the time a little bit and see how long, or see if something bad happens if I take as much time as I want. And thankfully, nothing bad happened. So when I got out there, I managed to have enough dialogue options. And I don't know if this is because I read like a book on negotiating that was written by a former policeman. But I used some of that in there, and I actually had a good outcome where I saved the girl, and I was like, yes, it's a good thing I read before I played this game.
Nice.
But yeah, it's,
like one
cool.
of the things you can do beforehand is you find a gun from a deceased police officer, and you can choose to take it with you into the scene or not. It's so funny because I chose to take it, and he kind of looks around like, oh, no one saw that, right?
Yeah.
But it's just hilarious how some of this stuff. David Cage is so crazy with some of his ideas, but he gets a lot of heat sometimes for being out there and like, you know, plot details not coming together, but this looks really promising.
Yeah.
You know, I'm cautiously optimistic about it.
Same here. I'm almost ready to put down a pre-order, but I'm gonna wait for some of the reviews and kind of go from there, and to just so we can get to the big discussion about the one game that we all want to talk about. Adam, let's go to you real quick, man. What have you been playing?
Yeah, missed being on the last episode. I was off getting my worship and learning on it together for the gospel, which was a great experience. Nice. It was so good. Some big time sermons, got some good books. So extremely thankful to get to go on that trip, but I did miss recording. Briefly, still playing Stardew Valley. I'm in the middle of fall. Enjoying that game. I'm 20 hours in. I'm like, how am I ever going to get through 3 years of this? It's going to be like an 80, 90 hour game just to get through the first 3 years. Because I think that's when like the grandfather comes back or something like that.
Oh yeah.
So I'm like, this is gonna be a long drawn out game, but still playing that, enjoying it. My wife hates that I play it. She's like, this may be the most ridiculous game that you've ever played. I'm like, you don't get it, and that says a lot because she didn't like Kingdom Hearts a whole lot, and she really didn't Persona 5 or Ni no Kuni because of how Japanese they are.
Mm-hmm.
So it says something if she's like, I just don't get why you like this game. But anyways, so I've been playing that a little bit. I started and finished since the last time we recorded Infamous Second Son. I knew that God of War was coming out, so my wife went to bed. I was doing a late event with some guys, and I got back at like 1 a.m. and she was already asleep. I'm like, God of War comes out tomorrow. I've got like 4 or 5 missions left. Let's see how much work we can do. And I ended up staying up to like 3 a.m. playing, which is super unusual. I had to get up at 7, so I'm like, I was like going on the next day, but I'm like, and I didn't even finish. I got to the freaking last boss, and I'm like, this is going to be a little bit more difficult because the end of that game is super cheap, and I did not like it because you work at building up all of these powers, and then in the final boss battle, they take them all away.
Oh, yeah.
I hated that. It kind of ruined the ending of the game. I mean, they kind of gradually give them back to you in another form, but I was just super frustrated by that, by the fact that it's like, what the heck did everything else I just do? Why does it even matter?
Yeah.
If you're just going to strip them away from me at the end of the game. So
I hear you.
That was frustrating, but I did finish it. And then I finished A Way Out with my buddy. Jeremy grew up playing video games together. I'm going to do a write-up, hopefully have it done by next week on the website, just kind of discussing it a little bit more in detail, but it was worth a playthrough. But it was not quite what I expected. It's, of course, extremely linear. The gameplay is a lot of QuickTime events,
Okay.
So a lot of what you have to do is kind of like, okay, you kind of walk around. There's a couple scenes where, there are some action scenes towards the end of the game, but the first, I don't know, 3 or 4 chapters, they're fun because you're doing it with somebody. But if I was doing it by myself, I would not have enjoyed it.
Oh, wow.
The most fun part was playing it with my buddy, talking, laughing when one of us screwed up or when we didn't time something right, because there's some things you got to time out. So if you got a good friend that you want to play through it with, I'd say check it out, especially for the price. If you've got like Best Buy, the Gamers Club, or Amazon Prime, you could have got the game for, I think I paid like $25 for it.
Oh, nice.
So, and it's probably 6 or 7 hours in length, maybe around 6 hours. So, I mean, to play a game like that with my buddy for 6 hours, that alone was worth it.
Yeah,
but the game I would say is like a 6.5, 7 out of 10.
Okay.
It was enjoyable because of who I was with, but if they do another similar style game, the people that created it, I think they can improve upon it and make it even better. But for the first time, kind of trying this, because he didn't have to buy the game to play it. So I had the game. Right. I could send him an invite. It would prompt him to a demo download, and then he could join that. So that was super cool. There are a couple things you got to be aware of. Logan brought these to my awareness. Like, there is a little bit of male nudity briefly in the beginning. It's unavoidable.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, it's super brief, but it is there. And apparently there's an opportunity.
So, sorry, real quick. Is that when they're first getting into the prison? Because I remember watching a Let's Play of this a couple weeks ago, and I think I came across that scene on YouTube. Is that when it is?
That's exactly what it is. So it's not like grotesque or like over sexual. It's just a guy getting checked into prison.
Gotcha.
And so they're kind of like washing him down or whatever.
Okay.
So that I finished that, and apparently if you do certain like conversations and stuff, you might be able to have sex with one of the guy's wives or something like that. But I didn't.
Oh.
I didn't do that in my like. I didn't even have that option because I didn't do. We weren't walking around doing every conversation and stuff like that.
Okay.
I don't think you see anything, but I think it's like implied.
Gotcha.
So, but again, I didn't get to that point, so I can't really speak to it. But played that, and again, it was an enjoyable 6-hour experience. But I'm not going to act like it's the best game I've ever played.
Sure.
It was I'd probably say mediocre game.
Yeah, man. Well, I look forward to the review, but let's talk about a game that is quite possibly the best game to have come out this year, or maybe one of the top 5 games in the past decade. Let's talk about God of War, because we're all playing it. I finished it last night. Fantastic game, but so I guess let's take a few minutes to talk about what we think of the game so far. Maybe if we haven't played any of the past games. Micah, man, where are you at in the game? I guess we're gonna also preface this, dear listeners, with we're going to avoid spoilers as best as we can. But if we mention that, there's a merchant in the game or there's an axe weapon in the game, don't freak out. It's kind of in the trailers. So Micah, dude, what do you think of the game? How far are you into it? Let's go over some of that stuff.
I am about 10 or so hours into the game.
Okay, that's a good chunk.
I'm getting to a point where I'm kind of starting to get familiar with all the different systems, all the upgrade systems, and kind of the hub world, and kind of we can go branch off, and I can do some side quest stuff now. And I think that stuff's been there for a little while, but I haven't really focused on it. The main story is so driving, so it's hard to get away from it. But yeah, so far it's incredible. It is one of, if not the best looking games I've ever seen.
Yes.
I think I hold, I guess, probably Horizon on that throne right now. I don't know, Uncharted 4. They're both up there. But this game, it's kind of hard to compare something like Uncharted with God of War, because the art style is so different. But man, the way it uses lighting, and the sun just pierces through branches and leaves as you're like rowing through the stream. The way that there's just so many like particle effects and just vibrant colors and all and everything you see. It's just a gorgeous game to look at.
Yeah,
That's one of the first things that jumped out. But what is really the meat and potatoes of a God of War game to me, I love the original 3 for the combat. It had great combat in this game. It wouldn't be a God of War game if it didn't have stellar combat. And this game nails all that stuff. You're swapping out the blades for this axe, which essentially acts just like the Hammer of Thor, where you can throw it, and with a press of the triangle button, it will flip back to your hand.
Yes,
in the most satisfying way.
So satisfying.
Even better when it hits an enemy on its way back.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's so good.
And there's strategy there with that too. That's what's so special. You can throw the axe at the head or their feet and trip them up. But what I realized early on is I had a guy was right in front of me, and I was kind of close to him, and if I angled a certain way, got myself between him and the axe a certain way, and called it back, it just tripped him up again.
Yeah,
he's right in front of me, and now I can just start wailing on it. But it's just really satisfying and creates a lot of different things you can do there in combat.
Yeah, man, it's awesome. Adam, what about you, man? Where are you at? What do you think so far?
I mean, I would agree. I think the combat is definitely great. I think me and Mike talking pre-show are about the same point. The combat's good, kind of messing with the different combos, the L1, R1 combos, kind of switching those in and out, see which one I like the best. I found one currently that I like. Figuring out which, kind of whatever rune stone or whatever that you can do if you want to regenerate health, or right after you get hit, you can hit a button and some of those things. Finding the right combination of that has been really good. The graphics, I mean, the shadows, kind of what you were talking about. Look, as you're walking, there's so many caves and stuff that the way the HDR works on the PlayStation 4 Pro is legit. I mean, and then you look at that beard. So echoing a lot of what Mike already said. But I'll be honest, the best thing about me is anytime the two characters talk.
Yes.
And the dialogue when you're in the boat. I mean, the boy stuff, it's cool to a degree, but it's also not getting old, but I just think with a lot of our social narrative going on in our culture right now, anytime you call someone a boy, I get that it's the context of the game and with who it is, with it being Kratos. But I'm just a little I think I'm just ultra sensitive to stuff because our culture is so toxic with everything that sometimes I'm just I wish he wasn't just calling him boy, because I know a lot of people were called boys in history and it's not. But anyways, I digress. But I love the back and forth, the dialogue. Kind of spoiler, kind of not. But there's a moment where they get separated, and the boy kind of brings them back together. And that moment about wrecked me. It was such a powerful moment. And I was just it was just, the dialogue is so stinking good. And you can see the tension that Kratos is going through. He wants to be compassionate, but he knows he can't. There's that tension. And so all of that, as good as the combat is, as good as the graphics is, man, it's the storytelling that has made it top notch for me. I cannot get enough. Even as they're talking in the boat, well, tell me about this. Tell me about this. When they talk about the mom, again, I'm not trying to spoil anything, but man, it's so good.
And it's all helped by some of the best facial animations I've ever seen.
Yes.
Again, not to get spoiler, but that I know exactly what scene you're talking about, Adam, and it would not be as good if Kratos and Atreus didn't have these looks on their face that just helped the whole scene out.
Seriously.
And going to your point about sort of the banter between Kratos and his son, I love how I'm not always into reading the lore and kind of getting into the menus and reading kind of backstory and stuff, but the way it's written in this game is Atreus, the son, keeps a journal, and it's always from his perspective, and he writes it in such a way oh, these Draugrs are, really hard in this way, and Father fought them this way. Maybe we should try that again. That kind of worked, and it's just really neat how he phrases it that way, and just sort of getting that lore from his perspective only is different from other games for sure.
Yeah, I haven't ventured into the journal yet myself, but from what I've been hearing from some people who have taken the time to read those, they've been telling me like, no, you go check those out because it's actually really, really cool to see how that's written, and it even adds to it. And I think to kind of go back to Adam's point of the writing in the game is just has what completely engrossed me, because I've played at least the first or the mainline 3 games in the series, and I'm going to be honest, and some of our listeners might get a little upset with this, but I actually hated the first 3 games because I didn't think Kratos was...
I wasn't a big fan either.
It's just, and it's not that the games weren't built really well. I mean, the combat was fast paced, it was frenetic, it was fun. I just couldn't stand Kratos. He was just an angry piece of cardboard that would just yell all the time, and I'm like, dude, I don't care, But in this one, he's more relatable to a degree, and that goes to how well written Kratos is. It goes to show how well written Atreus is, and even just the side characters with the little banter that they have and just how funny they can be. Mm-hmm. They all have personalities that are charming and flawed, but it's so cool to watch play out, and I find myself kind of going, man, Kratos, I feel bad for you for once. Like, I actually care about you in this game. It's just, it's so good. And just listening to him and Atreus talk together, I'm thinking of him going, boy, all the time. And it's a meme now. But just...
Read this, boy.
Yeah. But like when he's, I remember one scene specifically, and this isn't a spoiler or anything, but they're riding in the boat, and Atreus tells Kratos to tell him a story. And so Kratos tries telling him a story about the tortoise and the hare, but he does it really horribly. And so Atreus is like, you don't do this a lot, do you? And he's just like, no. I was just like, God, this is totally Kratos.
I just had that today, that story. And so,
same.
So good.
Like, let's try this again. And he's like, maybe later.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good. And that was one thing I wanted to highlight that I thought was really cool about the game, is that when the characters are telling a story in the boat, or when Kratos is telling a story in the boat, or even if Atreus is, when you go to the shore, well, like when you're done exploring and you go land somewhere, they'll actually stop after a point in the story, and then they'll go, maybe I'll finish this later. Or Kratos would be like, story time is only for the boat or something. We need to be alert when we're running around. And then when you get back in the boat, they pick up where they left off, or Atreus would be like, so you were saying about this? I'm like, dude, this is cool, because a lot of games don't do this. And so I thought that was cool, and it made the stories more worthwhile in terms of listening to them. And I think it's fantastic. Just, I mean, I don't need to say anything else about the combat. You guys nailed it perfectly. But man, what a game! And you guys haven't even finished it yet, and I have, man. You just wait until you get to the end. Oh,
you talk about the story as one of the high points. That's why I love these sort of games, these sort of single player games like this. So it's super promising. Looking forward to finishing it. I know I've got probably a ways to go though.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm trying to slow roll it, like I was saying pre-show. If I just rush through and beat it, I'm not going to go and explore. So I'm trying to be patient and explore as much as I can now.
Yeah, man. And I would totally encourage both you guys and anybody else playing the game, just take your time with it. Feel free to explore. Just enjoy that world that they've created, because it's worth exploring. You never know what you might find, and I think you'll unlock some neat little secrets. Little wink there, a little nudge to the dear listeners. So let's go ahead and try to get through what have you been reading real quick. Brought to you by Gareth Evans, one of our dear VIPs over on patreon.com. So guys, just real quick before we get into the topic of the show here, Micah, man, what have you been reading?
Well, I'm going to try to combine what I've been reading and sort of listening to into some sort of cohesive point. I've been out of town a little bit lately, so I was catching up on a sermon series for my church. Our pastor has been going through Romans for the past year and a half or so, and we're in Romans 8. And I was listening to on the plane home a sermon on verses 26 and 27. So I want to touch on that briefly. But in our at church in our small group that I'm in, we've been reading J.C. Ryle's Holiness, which is, I'm not going to get into the reco section, but I mean, if you want to reco J.C. Ryle Holiness, have either of y'all read this?
I can't say I've even heard of it.
Okay. I've heard of it, but I haven't read it.
Yeah, it's one of those books where you're going to wind up highlighting or underlining, like over 50% of the book. So it's like, why are you even highlighting anyway? So, but it's a really awesome book. We've been going through it in my small group, like I said, and we're in the chapter 4. It's called The Fight, basically talking about spiritual warfare and how for the Christian, for the true Christian, it is a fight, and it's a good fight. And basically, let me read this excerpt real quick from that chapter on spiritual warfare. This is J.C. Ryle. There are no promises in the Lord Jesus Christ's epistles to the 7 churches except to those who, quote, overcome. Where there is grace, there will be conflict. The believer is a soldier. There is no holiness without a warfare. Saved souls will always be found to have fought a fight. It is a fight of absolute necessity. Let us not think that in this war we can remain neutral and sit still. And, in this culture we live in America, in this middle-class culture, we can so easily be lulled to sleep by this world. And we do get stagnant, and there are times of struggle, when you feel like you take a step forward and 2 steps backward. And even the best, greatest Christian or whatever, is going to have times of suffering and times of struggle. And I guess my point here that I'm getting to is that even in these times of weakness, the Holy Spirit intercedes for us, and that's what I'm getting to in Romans 8, chapters 26 and 27. I'm reading in chapters 26 here. Likewise, the Spirit helps us in our weakness, for we do not know what to pray for as we ought. But the Spirit himself intercedes for us with groanings too deep for words, verse 27. And he who searches hearts knows what is in the mind of the Spirit, because the Spirit intercedes for the saints according to the will of God. So what that's saying for the Christian is that the third person of the Trinity, the Spirit, is residing inside of you and is praying for you to the first person of the Trinity, God the Father. And not only is he praying for you, he's praying for you in verse 27, according to the will of, he's praying for you perfectly. So when suffering comes, when doubt and anxiety hit, when cancer comes, when you're just, depressed because it's Wednesday, or the Spirit is praying for you. When you pull out of Taco Bell drive-thru and you're stuffing your face with a delicious, delicious cheesy gordita crunch, the Spirit is praying for you and interceding for you, and it's just a thought that we don't ponder enough, I don't think. And it should be a great comfort. What my pastor always says, I'm going to steal something he always says, it should put steel in the Christian spine to get out there and fight this fight, to battle indwelling sin, and to face what the Lord has placed before us.
Man, that's good.
That's good. Yeah,
that done put some steel in my spine. Not gonna lie.
Well, man, the great thing about that kind of flows right into a little bit of what I'm reading, talking about suffering and having to endure. I've started up here just this morning, actually, Dietrich Bonhoeffer's The Cost of Discipleship. I've read his biography. I've read one of his other well-known books, Life Together, looking at Christian community. And I'm like, how have I not read his main book yet? And so I'm excited again that I'm 15 to 20 pages in. But this guy, if you're not familiar with Dietrich Bonhoeffer and his story, I mean, just go look him up, find a YouTube video that kind of just breaks down his story, his life, read the beginning of The Cost of Discipleship or some of his biography. This guy was such just a baller. This guy, he understood the cost. He understood what it was going to take. He could have found a way out. There were multiple times as I was reading through just the beginning of this book where people were saying, hey, we can get you out. Hey, we can get you out. And he was basically like, I can't go back. I can't just be willing to go back and rebuild the church after the war if I'm not willing to fight with them while it's going on within the country. And so just seeing his commitment and understanding like there's going to be suffering, and he was unashamed of it, but they also knew, like it talks about how he loved on the prison guards and how they knew of his kindness, and that the prison guards would apologize for having to lock him in the prison because they knew of his kindness and his care for the other inmates. And so just an extremely, I mean, just reading his kind of his biography in the beginning, it's just a powerful testimony to this guy. And I haven't even gotten to the meat of the book yet, but I'm like, I'm going to have to name my first son Dietrich because this guy is just the boss. We actually, when Hannah and I got married, after reading his biography, again, just really made an impact on me. And he was actually engaged to a girl, I think her name was Marie or Maria, one of the two. And they never actually got to get married because he was in the concentration camps. But he talks about how he really wanted to read Psalm 103 in his wedding. And so we actually implemented Psalm 103 in our wedding because of Dietrich Bonhoeffer. So just for whatever reason, God's just kind of given me a soft. I think a lot of it's because I love World War II history, and so seeing his interaction with the war and trying to fight for the German church from within is just super powerful. So that's what I'm currently reading right now.
Man, that's good. Well, now you guys are gonna make me feel like a little bit of a, I don't know what the word is. I guess like a not good Christian. I don't know, because I've been reading Ready Player One because the movie came out.
Hey, you gotta get some fiction reading in.
That's true. Got to get some fun stuff in there. Some kind of stuff to challenge me a little bit. So I've been reading Ready Player One because the movie came out, obviously, and everybody else has seen it, with the exception of me, because we just don't go to the movie theaters all that often anymore. And I've had the book, but I've never actually I listened to it on Audible, but I don't remember anything. So reading through the book and remembering all these things, I'm like, this is a fun book. I don't know if I like it because of the nostalgia of everything or if it's actually decent writing. I'm trying to figure that out. But what's been interesting is that going through this book, the characters talk about this designer of the Oasis, James Halliday, and just how they kind of basically worship the dude. They know every little detail about the guy's life, and I'm like, yo, this is weird. Like, you guys, this is about as weird as when, several years ago when I worked at Apple and met people that basically kind of idolized Steve Jobs and knew all these details about his life. I'm like, yo, you spend a little too much time studying this dude's life. It's kind of creepy, you know? But reading through this book and seeing how much all these teenagers and characters know about this James Halliday guy, and so they can try and figure out where he hid his little Easter egg in the Oasis. It got me thinking about, not really got me thinking about, but it's been interesting because that collided with how I'm walking my students through 1 John, and we're coming to an end. And at the end of 1 John, at the end of chapter 5, verse 21, he says, "Little children, keep yourselves from idols." And it's interesting because he talks all this time throughout the book about how, you can look at your life and determine if you are following God or if you're following a false teaching. He never really puts forth that Christians are perfect. He always brings up the idea of, when you sin, just remember Jesus, our advocate in heaven. And so he gets through kind of reminding the people he's writing to about this fact of who we are in Christ, how we can have eternal life in him. And he ends the letter on, "Little children, keep yourselves from idols." And I'm like, that's so weird. But when you think about it, when we start worshiping idols, it takes us away from God. And then we don't really worship God. We don't really care about God. And it just leads us astray. And I'm like, dude, Ready Player One is a perfect example of that. You know, it's not a clear example of that. But you see it and how weird it is that people obsess over this one guy in hopes of obtaining this fortune. But the thing is that, you know, we often chase after idols in the hopes that we'll obtain some kind of fortune or pleasure or happiness, when really when we chase after Christ and we follow him, that's where we find our true fulfillment, our true our pleasure, joy is in Christ. And so it's just kind of been cool to have that go back and forth in my mind as I'm reading just a goofy nostalgia book. But it was cool. I don't know. It was one of those things where I'm reading this book. I'm like, here's my biblical worldview. It mingles with all that. Anyway, I thought it was cool. Maybe some of you dear listeners think it's cool, or you guys are just like, or some of you guys are like, man, Logan, you need to, I don't know. Words are hard. Anyway, Adam, good sir, let's go ahead and dive right into the topic, man. What is this state of thing that we're doing here? I know I mentioned at the top of the show, man, but what do we got going on for the topic?
No, I've just been thinking, okay, there's definitely new games and things that we can come out, but let's just kind of take a moment and, you know, we've got E3 coming up in a few months. Let's just pause and, okay, what is the state of PlayStation like? Where have they been? Where are we currently at? What have we got looking forward? And we want to do this, of course, with Nintendo. We'll do it also with Xbox. I don't know, PC people. I'm sorry. I don't know if we'll do one with PC. But yeah, I just wanted us to take, okay, let's just pause and look at where we're at. What do we have to be excited for? Let's not even look at all only good things. We'll look at some of the stumbles along the way, some ways that they can increase, and then even looking forward, because I don't think it's happening this year, but we're maybe a year and a half, year and a half away, maybe 2 years at most from PlayStation 5, Xbox, whatever next. Nintendo's probably not mixing it up too much. They may mess with their hardware a little bit with different memory combinations, but yeah, we just want to kind of go into a state of, and again, get some of our dear listeners, dear patrons involved. So let's just go ahead and start up. Yeah, so this is the TRG State of the PlayStation address. So let's just take a minute and we're going to look back. Where has Sony been? So kind of looking mainly from PS3 on. So kind of the jumps from PS3 to PS4, some of the different victories. So one of them being that something that Sony has maybe struggled at in the past is they haven't always listened to their devs super well. They haven't always listened to their fans. I think at the beginning of the PlayStation 3 era, that's kind of where they went a little bit astray. And I kind of make a note of this later, that when the PS3 came, a lot of what you heard was Blu-ray. It's got a Blu-ray player. People were buying PlayStation 3s because it was a cheap Blu-ray player when Blu-rays were expensive. So I think they kind of got sidetracked in some ways with that. And I mean, I'll be honest, I wasn't a PS3 guy originally. I got one towards definitely the end of the cycle, even when it was fully passed. But something that they've improved upon with the PlayStation 4 is, man, they are plugged in with their devs. This is something Micah actually added to the notes, is they've plugged in with their devs. They're plugged in with their fans. They know what the fans want, and they're giving it to them. Yeah, their message has been straight on from the beginning. We are a gaming console. We're focused on games, and we're giving you games. And that's going to be the thread of basically our state of the PlayStation, is what they're doing with games. So that's a big victory that they've had. Also, just looking at sales, I mean, they have just been crushing it. Of course, we've discussed this at different times on the podcast, how the PlayStation is just not that Microsoft isn't selling a good amount of Xboxes and making a lot of money, but I mean, they're just getting dominated this generation in regards to just the amount of sales. Currently, I couldn't find an exact number for like right now, but as of January, they were something like 73.5 million consoles. So you give a couple more months, they're well over 75 million units at this point that's sold, in comparison to 84 million in the PS3's whole life cycle.
Golly,
so we're not, I mean, by the end of this year, they're probably at or potentially surpassing that number of the entire life cycle of the PlayStation 3. So definitely some good things going on there, but then there's still been some stumbles. They don't have the true backwards compatibility that you find on Microsoft. They've tried to bring in some of the old PS2 classics, PS3. Well, they don't do PS3. It's not backwards compatible, but PS2 games, some PS1s, and things like that. But the lack of backwards compatibility has been a downer, especially seeing when our Xbox brethren get to do that. And the other one, I mean, it's a small thing. We always joke at it, but the fact that you can't change your gamer tag in 2018 is just kind of
what
ridiculous.
are they doing?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of looking back. So looking back at where PlayStation has come, PS3, and even these first 4.5, 5 years into that PlayStation 4, like, what are some highlights that you guys have? Maybe Michael, let's go to you first. What are some things that you think of when you think of the first 5 years of PlayStation?
Well, I'll answer your question, but real quick, I just want to bounce back to when the PS3 was announced versus to when the PS4 was announced, I guess. If you remember that, like the PS3, that was the whole $699 US. You're going to get a second job for this thing.
Yeah.
The hubris was through the roof. And people looked at that, and they looked at the Xbox 360, and they're like, wow, these guys have Halo and a pretty good online service here.
Yeah.
And you saw what happened there. But it took Sony a whole entire generation to dig and claw out of that. But anyway, that sort of sets up what I was going to say with it's my favorite part of this generation. But one thing that stands out in my memory when you asked that question was the E3. I love E3, but the E3 that both Microsoft and Sony announced the prices of their systems. It was the summer 2013. And you had the misstep that Microsoft had, and then Sony just came out and just said basic stuff that you would expect someone to say that has a games console, and the crowd was just cheering and eating it up like it was like they had done something crazy awesome. And it's just like, well, no, they're just doing kind of what you would expect, I guess, at a pretty fair price as far as the PS4
consumer
goes.
Friendly.
But I remember that E3 being so just crazy. Like, is this the same Sony? Like, do you remember that video that came out with Adam Boyes and Shuhei Yoshida on YouTube right after their press conference? It was like, here's how you share games. And it was handing it to Adam Boyes. It was 10 seconds long. And Sony produced that.
Oh, it was so good.
Just to see where they came from the PS3 days when they announced it to PS4, you could clearly tell they've seemingly learned from their mistakes, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But that's something that sticks out in my memory.
Man.
How about you, Logan?
So good. It's just, I mean, we could go there. I think probably the thing that's been my favorite thing, or the thing that's kind of stuck out the most since then is just the hype. I mean, it's been, because I mean, Adam, me and you were roommates. You knew that we were both Xbox fanboys, man. Yeah. And so to kind of go from being an Xboy, almost an Xboy, Xbox, an Xbox 360 guy, going from that to a PlayStation, I never thought that would have happened, but it was just so cool. I remember getting my PS4. I think that's probably my most memorable thing I'm going to say is getting my PS4 on Black Friday. We rushed home from the in-laws' house to go wait in line at GameStop for like 3 hours. My wife was super gracious and loving, and I got one. I got one of the last ones, and I remember taking it home and booting it up and playing it for a couple hours, and just thinking, dude, this is so cool. And I was like, I want to stay up and play this, but I'm like, I gotta get to work in like 6 hours, and I haven't slept yet. So like, it's just the excitement from it, man. Just getting that new hardware, getting new experiences, getting some new games like Killzone, and just seeing the updated graphics was just such a thrill ride, just something I still even get hyped about just thinking about, man. Booting up Killzone for the first time and seeing it, I'm like, oh, it looks gorgeous. I can use this little touchpad thing that no one uses anymore. I can use, it's just, so good. So good.
It's funny, a couple things. Hearing Micah talk about the PS3 launch price, I remember I was working back in the day, mowing yards in high school, and I'm like, I'm saving up for the PS3, saving up. And I had a decent amount of money saved up, and then they dropped that price, and I'm like, I'm not buying a PS3 anymore. I can't. Yep. Like, I think I even had the money, but I'm like, I cannot legitimize buying and spending this much money. It knocked me out. I mean, I was like, I'm not getting a PS3 apparently. And so that's funny. But even hearing Logan talk about when you got your PS4, like I was coming back from overseas, getting engaged, and I was like doing all this research of what do I do? I know I'm getting a new system. My boys got me for my at my bachelor party. They gave me the system. But talking and like doing all this research, do I go Xbox One? Do I go PlayStation 4? Do I go Xbox One? Okay, I'm used to Xbox, but they keep talking about all these games on PlayStation 4, talking to all my buddies, talking to Wink, talking to just everyone, and then landing on a PS4 and then getting it and just being like, okay, this is, I think I made the right choice for where I'm at now. A lot of single play. And then even recently I was looking at kind of my trophy list to a degree, and they do them kind of chronologically of when you earned them. So I scrolled all the way to the bottom and kind of looked at the games that I played in the order that I played them. And I can remember where I was when I played Shadow of Mordor. I can remember it. Like that was like the first game that I bought and played on my PlayStation 4. I can remember playing Dying Light and getting hype about playing that and playing it with Logan. Yeah, I can just remember these stages. And so it kind of tells a story, or brings back memories at least. So it definitely has some of those connection points. I mean, it was right when I got married, and so it'll always kind of be associated with that. So definitely some sentimental things with PlayStation. But let's get to kind of Sony present. They've been knocking it out of the park, just positive, killing it. Not a lot of negative press, just making a lot of really good decisions. But okay, Sony present, where are we currently? We'll look at games maybe within the last 6 months, some other things that they're currently doing that are going well. So just we're just going to talk mainly first-party console exclusives. So not even if they're on PC, but mainly first-party console exclusives. So we got Persona 5. This next one's kind of cheap, but we'll count it. Shadow of the Colossus.
You have to count it.
Oh,
it's a remake, but a lot of people didn't play it, and I know you guys are both big fans of it. So Shadow of the Colossus, Ni no Kuni 2, major selling point right here for PlayStation. They're the only one in the game with a major baseball game.
Yep.
I know we don't have a lot of sports guys in the old TRG Facebook group, but that's a huge get.
Yeah.
I just saw today the March NPDs came out, and I think MLB The Show was I think it was number 3. But anyway, what the news was, it was the best-selling MLB The Show to date, or best debut or whatever. So it's just picking up steam and getting better and better.
It's crazy. That's a major get. And of course, God of War just came out. So that's kind of where we're at with like specific exclusive games to PlayStation. Then you've got all your other third-party games, of course, that are multi-platform. But then you have one of the big highlights I want to say with Sony present is they've done a really good job of keeping their stuff close to chest. And what stuff I mean, like release dates, developments going on within different studios. Like they're not giving it to it and being like, all right, come back in 2 years. I mean, you kind of get that with Last of Us, but everyone knows Last of Us. But like, okay, we knew Spider-Man, God of War, Detroit Become Human. Some of those games were coming out, but we didn't get dates till 3 months beforehand. We just got God of War beginning of this year. We just got Spider-Man a couple weeks ago. We just got, Detroit Become Human a month or two ago. So I think that's a major positive of the hype gets built and then it's there. We're not waiting 6 months, 8 months, a year. So I think that's a big thing with Sony present. And then lastly, we haven't even discussed the VR development yet. Sony has got the most probably reasonably priced, accessible, high level VR experience out there. You don't have to go out and create some major rig on your PC to be able to do like the Rift or Oculus, some of the whatever the different. I don't even know. They may be the same thing. I think I just mentioned Oculus Rift, but the PlayStation VR is the most accessible. And people seem to be really enjoying it. Mike, I believe you have.
I have
the VR,
one.
Right?
Yeah. I have one. I've had one since last year. I've had one about a year now. To your point, Adam, it's the cheapest entry into the VR realm, kind of as we know it now. It's PSVR, it's the Oculus Rift, it's HTC Vive. as the main players. But yeah, it's everybody that comes over to whenever my friends or buddies come over to try it, they're just blown away by it. I know, Logan, you've mentioned that you haven't had the best experiences with it in the past, and it's not for everybody, just for price alone, but just for the comfort factor. A lot of people can't handle motion sickness or whatever that. So it's not for everybody, but man, it is. If you want to talk about a true kind of leap from generation to generation, that I feel like a lot of people are looking at the fidelity of last gen to this gen graphically, and they're kind of disappointed. But to me, this is the generational leap. I played Resident Evil 7 from beginning to end in VR, and it was the most harrowing experience I've ever had with a piece of media, movie or video game or anything. I was sweating, bobbing back and forth just because I was so nervous. It is, and you can't really, me just saying all this stuff isn't going to sell it. You have to try it. Like I said, anybody that comes over, they're just knocked off their feet. It's a really cool device. It's, I think they just knocked the price down for it too, down to $299 for the base. But anyway.
And I would even say that if you want to get into VR, and if you get on Twitter, follow some of these game deal Twitter handles that we mentioned. They're constantly showing them for $199, $225, and that's usually with a game. And so they've actually become extremely accessible, even in price range. Now I know $200 isn't no money or a little bit of money, but compared to even where it is, I mean, you can enter into the VR realm for a reasonable price if you're willing to wait and look around for a good price. So even to that point, it's like, I've been tempted multiple times, but I just keep telling myself, Adam, you don't need it. You don't have time to play everything you got. Stop adding. You don't have time. And so, but I think even to that, VR is definitely accessible, even price wise nowadays. So,
yeah.
Logan, what are some things? Okay, we mentioned some of these games that the exclusives that PlayStation's kind of been known for. Like, of those games, like, when you think of all the games that we can play right now on PlayStation, like how much more hype does that kind of get you? Again, we haven't even got to what's coming. That's just, if you went out and bought a PlayStation today, maybe this is the way I want to ask. If someone went out, they're listening to this podcast, they go out and buy a PlayStation, give them your top 3 games, PlayStation exclusives that they should play.
You want me to give the dear listeners my top 3 games that they got to play on their PS4 right meow?
PlayStation exclusives.
Just exclusives. Here we go. Well, it's not going to be that hard because, I mean, there's plenty to choose from. But I think my top 3, I always recommend this whenever someone in the group gets a new PlayStation. I always recommend Resogun, but at this point, just about any game made by Housemarque Studios is a fantastic get on the PS4.
Yes.
Just because they make these really fun arcade style shooters that look insanely awesome. Like, it's like Tron, but on steroids. And I remember playing Resogun when I first got my PS4, because I think it was the free game that came with PS Plus that month when it came out, or the month after. But I remember playing it, and it's this neat, like, it's a 3D game, but you play it on a 2D kind of a 2D cylinder thing. You're flying around, blowing up these ships and saving civilians and getting into boss fights. But it's so visually stunning, and it's just so much fun that it's a must-have on the PlayStation. And I think it's reasonably priced now too. I think it's like $15, if not a little bit more. But anything by Housemarque. So I mean, you've got Resogun, you've got Alienation, you've got Matterfall, you've got Nex Machina, you've got plenty of choices to choose from that studio. Any one you pick up, you're going to have a blast with. So anything by Housemarque Studios. The second one that I would recommend is easily Horizon Zero Dawn. That's a game that I believe any kind of gamer, whether you're someone that's new to games, someone that's been playing games for a while, you can pick that up and be like, oh, okay, this is really cool. I like this. And I say that with full confidence because I thoroughly enjoyed the game. My wife, who doesn't play games quite to the degree that I do, she loved the game. And it's a cool world. It looks great. It plays great. The story's really good. Aloy is just a charming and endearing character that anyone can just kind of gravitate towards. And plus, it's got a sweet little photo mode. So if you have that kind of creative tendency, you can get some really sweet photos for your background on your PlayStation. Now, the third one is kind of hard to recommend. There's just
a lot of options.
There's a lot of options. That's exactly it. But kind of what I want to do with my third spot is give folks a game that everyone in the family can enjoy. I would put God of War in there, okay, but I'm not going to do that for the purposes because people get a PS4, or people that listen to our podcast or in the Facebook group, they get a PS4, they have kids, they want to know what games can I play with my kids. One that I would recommend that I'll put in the third spot is Ratchet and Clank. Fantastic game. So much fun. The characters are charming. The humor is so funny. The gameplay itself is easy enough to get into, but it'll offer some challenges in certain areas where it's necessary. But it's easily a great game. I know some people can throw Knack in there, but as much as we joke about Knack being the masterpiece in the group, it really Ratchet and Clank is a better game. And I think if you were to pick up those three games, Resogun, Horizon Zero Dawn, Ratchet and Clank with your PS4, you have a great time ahead of you, especially with your family. So,
tell you what, that's extremely interesting because I would have probably guessed Horizon Zero Dawn, but I wouldn't have picked those other two choices. I mean, that's just the depth of the PS4's library right now, and so, and even adding to that, as we just look at Sony's future going forward. I mean, upcoming releases, again, just speaking mainly to exclusives. Again, we could talk third-party, just general games. I mean, games like Red Dead that'll be on both parties.
Yeah.
Just going to be big-time hitters. But specifically, we've got Spider-Man here coming up soon. Detroit Become Human. Days Gone probably within the next year. The Last of Us 2 in probably the next year and a half. Hopefully. Ghost of Tsushima?
Yes.
Is that how you pronounce it? Death Stranding. And even for you creative types who like to play games that we don't even know what they're going to be, you've got Dreams coming. And so, I mean, even looking at that the next year, just again, looking back at what we talked about at Sony Pass, they've promised we are a game system. We're for the gamers, and that's what we're going to put out. Yeah, Sony lacks in some of the features maybe that you can find on Xbox, but they are giving the exclusives in the gaming experience. So that's just looking forward. Other things to begin that I really. So let me stop there, and then we're going to close with another little. I'm going to ask you guys a question. Looking forward, give me your one game first, Micah. Then we'll go to Logan. Your one game that you're most looking forward to, Sony exclusive.
And I'd be lying if I said anything other than Spider-Man. That Spider-Man is, I guess that and Batman kind of, or 1A and 1B as my favorite superheroes. Insomniac Games looks like they are nailing it with this game. I know everyone's talking about the swinging. No one's done good swinging since Spider-Man 2.
True.
And I don't know if any... I don't think any real people have gotten super hands-on with it other than Game Informer, but from everything that we can see, it looks like this game is just shaping up beautifully, a good open world. So yeah, Spider-Man definitely very excited about.
And they just announced the Iron Spider costume is going to be in that game. So I'm like,
I've seen that.
I was like, what?
Oh, and another thing about the costumes, I don't know if you guys heard this. I thought this was really neat. And Adam, I specifically thought of you when they said it because I remember you talking about, like costumes that change how you look, but they'll also change your stats and stuff. So you might have something really dumb looking because you want to buff out your strength or whatever.
Yeah.
They said that if you can basically intermingle what you look like and what the stats are. So if you want the stats from costume A, but the look of costume B,
that's how you do it. That's how you do it.
I read that somewhere, so I guess don't quote me, but I'm 90% sure that's a thing in Spider-Man.
Don't you tease me, Micah? You dare.
Giving you a little teaser, man.
I'm gonna get in there and be like, "Oh yes, this is my favorite." Where's that feature where I can switch all the stats? I'm gonna call Sony and be like, "My buddy Micah, who's never wrong and never would lie to me, told me I could do all these things." Be like, "You never said that."
Put on the
It's
spot.
gonna be heartbroken.
I hope that's true.
Oh man, that's funny.
How about you, Logan? What are you looking forward to?
So, I'm not gonna lie, I'm hyped for Spider-Man, but there's one game that kind of took over the hype, the one that I'm most looking forward to right now, and it's Detroit Become Human. That demo left a major impression on me, just from the visuals. Like, I love the futuristic, cyberpunk look to things. And this game has that in such a cool way that it makes me think of Deus Ex if Deus Ex had color to it instead of just like the dark tones and the gold. So I'm excited to get into that world and just kind of see what's going on and see how my choices affect the world around me and get into those situations where I'm like having to pause the screen because I'm like, what do I do? Because I remember playing that in Heavy Rain, and it was a very stressful game to play through sometimes. But it was so incredibly thrilling, and I can't wait to do that with Detroit Become Human. And I hope the story's really good. The gameplay felt great in the demo, but I hope the story's really good. So it'll encourage me to maybe go for a platinum trophy. But that demo really impressed me, y'all. I forgot to mention this earlier, but I'm going to try and do a write-up for the website talking about just some of the things it does right, where I think it can improve, and a couple things like that. But dude, Detroit Become Human looks and plays incredible. So I'm super excited for that.
Yeah, I think I'm interested to see Detroit Become Human just because it's very much just story based, and like I enjoyed Until Dawn. I enjoyed I'm trying to think. I never played like Heavy Rain. But some of the where you have like some of the Telltale games and stuff where you're wondering, do your decisions really matter? And I heard this one, there's like 4,000 pages of just writing and story. And so it can just branch off so many different ways. And so I need to try out the demo. I'm definitely going to be trying it out in the next couple weeks once students are gone. But that game's got my attention, but I'd probably be lying if I didn't say Spider-Man. That game looks amazing. The combat, they make it look so fluid. And it looks almost too fluid. I'm like, how am I going to know all of these button combinations that we've seen in some of the trailers? Because there's so many different moves that are going on. And so it'll be interesting, but that game, I mean, Last of Us has got me excited, but that seems so far away. Days Gone looks like it could be good, but I still don't really know what it's about. Death Stranding is probably never going to come out.
Whoa. Never? Come on, man.
I mean, we'll see. It could be.
It's going to be a while.
It's going to be a while,
that's
but
for sure.
Kojima, Norman Reedus, every other weird person in the world's going to be in it. It's going to be so crazy.
It's going to be so good, though.
It's going to
be
wreck.
So stinking good.
It's going to wreck our minds. We're going to it's going to be nuts. But let's finish with this just briefly because I know we're running a little bit older. Anyways,
I mean, I am old.
PS5. Let's talk PS5. Now that's a little ways out, but that's what we're doing. We're looking in the future. What are some of our expectations? What are some of our hopes? It's hard to know. I get to points in gaming cycles where I'm like, how do we get any better? Like, yeah. I'm not really a techie in those ways. I don't understand the processors and the teraflops, and I'm just like, how are we gonna get any better than what I'm seeing in God of War? It looks so good. And so, what are some expectations and hopes that you guys have for the PlayStation 5? Let's go to Mike. I'll throw it to you first as our guest.
Yeah. Gosh, I don't know. Expectations? I mean, I expect that Sony will keep, cultivating their first-party studios and hopefully have a great lineup just like they've had for PS4. I expect that the controller will be nearly exactly the same.
I hope so.
But no, I mean, I don't really have any. I mean, I have some hopes. I hope that they, I love VR. I hope that they make a PSVR 2 for PS5. I hope that obviously we can change our names. I hope that they do more with the online stuff. They're still, I don't know. I mean, they're still probably lagging behind Xbox Live in that regard.
I agree.
So I hope they can offer some more functionality and just some new ideas to their online infrastructure. But I mean, really, the reason I play PlayStation is because of the games that they create in their first-party studios. They create high quality, high production, usually third-person action adventure games with a narrative focus, and I love that. So if they keep doing that and crank out a AAA game a year kind of thing, then I'll be happy.
Yeah, good.
Well,
how about you, Logan?
I'm expecting, not hoping, I'm expecting. So PlayStation, I know no one from PlayStation listens to this podcast, but just in case you guys are listening, I expect a collection of all of the Persona games on PlayStation. I'm kidding.
500 hours long.
Do what?
500 hours long.
Exactly. That's what I want. I want to get a platinum trophy for each game. But no. Something I actually do expect, and this is something that we'll kind of touch on a little bit when we talk about Xbox. PlayStation needs to bring it with their services a little bit, and one in mind that I'm thinking of specifically is PlayStation Now. I think the idea of that service is great, where you pay a monthly fee and you have access to all these games. But where it's flawed is that you have to stream those games, and the times that I've used it, there's been enough of a delay where it's ruined the enjoyment of the game, and to a degree, it's ruined my ability to even play the game. But on Xbox, with their Games Pass, you can download the games. And so it's like, why can't we do that with PlayStation Now? Why can't you let me have the option to either stream the game or download it? Because not everybody has a really great internet, myself included. It's honestly amazed that I'm honestly amazed that I'm even able to do YouTube content for the podcast at this point. But something like that, just they've got the first party exclusives down pat. They've got that down perfectly fine. But something I'm expecting is they kind of bring it with their services a little bit more. Spotify is great. I love that. But I wish that something like PS Now could be better. It could be improved on. And then also, of course, please Shuhei, let us change our names. There's that. Other than that, though, I can't think of much else because it's like you, Adam. I mean, how can they make this system better? I don't know the answer. I know they can make.
This is why we don't get paid the big bucks.
That's true. That's true.
This is why we're
I can
not
just
the
throw out random
PlayStation
suggestions.
CEO. This is why we're not Shuhei.
Yes.
No, I think you guys hit a lot of them on the head. I think online infrastructure's got to be a continued growth.
Yeah.
They're way better than Nintendo, but I would agree that they're behind
Not
Sony
much better.
or Microsoft. They're still behind Microsoft. I believe in that aspect. Just the services that they provide, they've improved in that with some of their streamings and some of that stuff. Again, its main concern should be games, and I don't think that they're ever going to lose that.
Sure.
Don't get distracted. Keep it games focused. But the more of those extra things that you can add, it's only going to be. We didn't mention PlayStation View. That's been a huge get since the PlayStation 4. I mean, that's Sony broad more than just PlayStation, but extremely positive there. And I think they're just kind of like Micah said, the integration of PlayStation VR is going to be something they're going to keep pushing with PlayStation 5. You're not going to need probably the little box that comes with it. They need to improve the headset because it's got a little bit of that blurriness. Not crazy, but I mean it doesn't look as crisp from my understanding as other VR headsets. Still exceptional. But I think you guys really, really hit a lot of those out of the park, and it's just it'll be interesting to see what they do. I mean, definitely PlayStation Vita 2 on the go. That's the PlayStation 5. It's the Vita 2. I'm gonna take it on the go. They're gonna copy Nintendo. I'm gonna take my PlayStation. I'm gonna be playing God of War on the toilet. Wait,
Perfect.
I can already do that right now. My Vita. But Micah, do you have a Vita?
No, I really wish I did for remote play. Obviously, I have remote played on my Mac, but no, I wish I had a Vita.
That Vita Life. I've actually, yeah, I don't need to go down the rabbit hole that is my love for the PlayStation Vita. But anyways, yeah, that's the TRG state of the PlayStation address. You guys got any other closing thoughts just as we talk PlayStation?
No, I don't think so. Well, I will say one thing. In just kind of doing some research for this episode, I knew it but forgot. It's just kind of an interesting note that Kaz Hirai, the famous Sony CEO and executive, he became the president and CEO of Sony in 2012. And the PS4 launched in 2013, and he recently stepped down, I think, in the past handful of months. So it'll be interesting. And Kaz came from a PlayStation background, came up through the PlayStation division up through Sony. So it'll be interesting to see how kind of everything goes now that he's out of here. Yeah. But just a thought to leave you with.
Wow. Well, I'm going to end it with this. Dear listeners, I've thought long and hard about this, a total of 10 minutes, and I'm actually going to take off my platinum crown and stop. I'm kidding. I'm going to keep going for platinum trophies. I need to get that God of War one. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, so yeah, dear listeners, that's been our State of the PlayStation address here on TRG. First, part 1 in our 3-part series, brought to you by Richard Morrow Keen. Thank you for supporting us at the $25 tier on patreon.com. Dear listeners, unfortunately, episode 116 is coming to a close. But before we let you go, some recos brought to you by Dear VIP Eric Bryant. Micah, Brosaurus Rex. What should our dear listeners check out?
Okay, so I wanted to bring a game or two that I think gets a little bit less attention, at least in the Facebook group. One of my absolute favorite games from last year was What Remains of Edith Finch by developer Giant Sparrow. These guys created the game Unfinished Swan for PS3, and then I think it got ported to PS4 as well. Where you throw a bunch of black blobs onto a white canvas. Anyway, that's where how a lot of people know it, at least. So What Remains of Edith Finch follows this family from Washington State, and you play as the title character, and you're going back to your home that you grew up in Washington as like a 19-year-old to sort of learn about your family's past, and you have a sort of a curse. The Finches have a curse on their family where all the members die these really strange deaths, and so as Edith, you go back to the house, and of course every family member had their own bedroom, and each bedroom sort of represents, okay, here's the story for this family member, and then you go play out that 5 to 20 minute story, and it's super engaging as far as the narrative that they're telling and the mystery that's involved, and it's just a wonderful. It's kind of falls into the whole walking simulator category. I hate that term, but if you play games like Firewatch, whatever, and love that, you'd love What Remains of Edith Finch. But it's just a great game, great developer. They put a lot of thought and care into this. It's got some of the very best moments of 2017, in my opinion. So definitely give What Remains of Edith Finch a try. It's available for PS4 and Xbox and PC, I believe.
Nice.
I've got one more that I'll briefly mention. I won't spend a whole lot of time on, but this really fun little kind of 2D brawler beat 'em up called Viking Squad. I've talked about it before in the group, but I'm a big fan of the Xbox 360 game Castle Crashers. This very colorful, bright 2D brawler, just kind of emphasis on fun and co-op play. It had 4-player local co-op, I think. This game is a lot like it. I think there's up to 3-player online or local, but it sort of scratches that itch for just getting on the same TV with a buddy or your wife or something like that. But yeah, Viking Squad. That is for PC and PS4.
Right on.
Nice.
Adam, man, what should our dear listeners check out?
I didn't mention in my reading, but I recently I got to be a part of a launch team for a new book. It's a book by John Perkins called One Blood. It's a book just looking at what he would describe as biblical reconciliation. He kind of he looks at the term racial reconciliation being a false idea. Again, I'm not going to go into all the ins and outs of the book, but it's a solid read if you know anything about John Perkins. I think, Logan, you read a book I recommended of his, Dream With Me, maybe last year or something like that.
I picked it up. I haven't gotten to it yet.
Okay. But yeah, it's same author, but it's kind of like he's been doing this for like, I don't even know, 70 years. I mean, always he's in his upper 70s, so he's been doing this for like 60, 50 years. Just this idea of reconciliation and looking at it from a biblical perspective. And so it's a solid book. It's not, he's not rewriting anything. It's just a lot of his kind of like, it's an easy read, but he's kind of just, pleading out of his heart. It's kind of an overflow of what he's seen. I think he gives a fair approach. He looks at some things that have been struggles. He looks at some different churches and how some churches are doing this really well. Looks at positives. And so it was a really solid read, especially again with the cultural climate that's going on around not just our world in the United States, but within the church. And so just another helpful read just to kind of, different perspectives, understanding. But yeah, One Blood by John Perkins, I'd recommend that.
Right on. Well, dear listeners, as far as my recos go, of course, God of War. If you've got nothing else to play on your PS4, which I think you probably do, there's a lot of games to play on the PS4. But if you find yourself looking for a new game to play, hit up Redbox, or if you got some extra trade-in credit at GameStop or something like that, pick up God of War, enjoy it, just have some fun with it. Then also, this is not so much a reco as it is, I'm curious to know how many other people have actually watched this by now. And it's this new, I guess you can call it an anime that came out recently called Batman Ninja, where basically Batman winds up in feudal Japan and becomes a ninja and is fighting Joker and Two-Face with like mechs and samurai suits. It's really weird. If you want to watch it, go for it. If you don't want to watch it, that's fine. But if you've seen it, let me know what you think about it, because I want to discuss this thing, and it's just weird. I guess I'll just say that. So anyway,
I've seen the trailer for it, and it was intriguing for sure.
Yeah, the trailer's one thing, and then the whole movie, watching the movie itself from beginning to end is weird. But it's kind of cool. Like, I don't know. If you guys have seen it, let me know. I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on it. But
I have to check that out.
Yeah, dude, it's, like I said, it's something. Anyway, dear listeners, as always, if you like what you hear, if you like what we're doing here at TRG, you can head over to patreon.com/thereformedgamers to pledge your support. Even just a little bit of support, such as like $1 a month, goes a long way in helping support this show and helping us grow. And plus, you get some sweet, sweet perks along the way. And what am I? Oh, there we go. Okay. It would help if I had my app pulled up. Okay. So we're also putting up YouTube content as well over at youtube.com/thereformedgamers. I've been a little behind this past week because it's just been busy with prepping things for ministry, but I'm hoping to get that stuff updated by the time that this episode fully releases, with some new content, some new videos. The first hour of God of War, episode 115 going up on the YouTube site, and a couple other things as well that I'm working on. So hopefully we'll get that up and running. But as always, subscribe there, hit the bell icon so you never miss an upload. And as always, head over to the website, thereformedgamers.wordpress.com, to look out for our reviews for games that are coming down the pipeline, to look for different opinion pieces, show notes, and more. And as always, you can follow us on Twitter at TRG Podcast, or join the Facebook group over on Facebook. Micah, man, Platinum Hunter Supreme. I try to think of a good acronym for you. I think that'll, not acronym, adjective, whatever, man. That's your title. You're the Platinum Hunter Supreme, man. Thank you for joining us on this episode.
Yes, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. It's been a blast.
Yeah, man. Anyway, dear listeners, until next time, GG and amen.